I have about $9,000 worth of parts in my garage ready to drop into this. Just finish your car with what you can first and then continue down the road later. Yes, I'm going to turbo the out of this car.
What's up, crew? Welcome to a new episode of Prjct.POD, a podcast about cars, because they're flipping awesome. I am on the road, so hence my aura is a little off because I've been traveling all day. But regardless, had a really fun episode with Justin where I decided to dive specifically into his E36, Prjct.Reanimate. This was what we named it when we first started Prjct.Garage. I had started with my E36 being called Project Storm. It turned into Project Vibranium. Now it's Project Trash Panda. He has always had Prjct.Reanimate, which, as you will find out in this episode, his build is really all about bringing his car back to a former glory and what he's always dreamed that car to be. So enjoy.
Also, God damn it, I've been meaning to put my camera on this side so that we're not looking like we should be.
Stop recording. I could do that.
Oh, you're gonna mirror yourself?
Yeah.
Don't do that, because then the logo is gonna be backwards, and
Yeah.
it's fine. I don't have a lotto ticket again. Did you check your numbers from last time?
Didn't fucking win. I never fucking win.
We are not millionaires still.
I didn't even hit a number. Like, that's how it normally goes for me with those things. Like, I didn't even hit a fucking, not one number.
Dude, in the last several attempts, I've at least hit the Powerball, which is a $4 win.
Yeah, nothing.
That's ridiculous. Well, we're still not millionaires, which means it's going to take us just as long still to upgrade our cars, which I've decided is today's episode topic. Let's talk about your Prjct.Reanimate. Let's dive into your dream build.
My dream.
Because I think we've kind of run around random topics lately, and some of them I feel like are good, like just talking points.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't truly dove deep into like the actual plans. Like we did a little bit in the sound system. You talked about how you want to have achieve a certain sound.
Yeah.
And in our first, like our pilot episode, we talked about our cars. But now I want to like actually get into the nitty gritty. Like what's the real plan? And I guess we should break it down in those sections of like when you go into the car customizer of Need for Speed, you go into the paint,
body,
suspension,
engine, sound system. Gosh. Okay. So I don't know if you've recently gone into our Prjct.Garage Road to Beamer Fest spreadsheet, Google Sheet, whatever we have.
Yeah.
But I am updating that thing constantly with parts.
You're still in there?
I am still in there.
Wow.
Updating shit all the time. I don't know if you can open it real quick, but if you can, you'll see just like the astronomical amount of shit that I want to do to this car. And a lot of it is either already done. Well, not a lot of it's already done, but there are things that are done or things that have already been bought. So there's parts that are just sitting there waiting for this stuff to happen. But I mean, if we were just to go down the list, right? If we wanted to start, right, we're going to go with like the body, because this is like a multi-tiered project build, right?
And I think that's a good point. That's where we should take this episode, which is what are we going to do first? And then what are the attainable things that we can continue to do based on the parts you have, based on, sort of like budgeting.
So what I have about $9,000 worth of parts in my garage ready to drop into this car. And it used to be like close to 12, and I got into some financial crisis and I had to sell off a few parts that I was so happy to have and finally got for this car. And they were my ARC 8 wheels, they were my BC coilovers. I really wanted to put those in, and I had to end up selling them with the tires because of some dumb financial decisions I made. But to kind of go through what we're going to do at the very beginning, and we've talked about this, at the beginning of this podcast, when we started this podcast, is the car has been sitting for almost a decade, unused, and it is strictly because the paint got to such a terrible state that I did not want to drive the car anymore. And my thought process was to get the car painted by somebody and then kind of rebuild this and throw some parts back on it. that ended up making me go down this rabbit hole of, well, if I'm doing this, I should do this. If I'm doing this, I should do this. If I'm doing this, I should do this.
The
It'll
might as
make it
well.
easy. It'll make it easier on me. No, it fucking hasn't. It's made it way harder. So anybody that has the mentality that I do, just finish your car with what you can first and then continue down the road later.
Just calm the down for a minute. Think about what's achievable.
Yeah.
Get it done so you can enjoy your car.
So the very first thing that needs to be done in this car is paint.
Yeah.
It's currently taken apart. It's almost a bare chassis at this point. And by bare chassis, I mean just things on it, not necessarily, taking the paint off of the current paint that's on there, but there's not really a lot attached to the car right now. The motor's out. A majority of the auxiliary parts are out, like the power steering, reservoirs, the ABS is off. We took out a bunch of the wiring from the engine bay and within the cabin. The entire interior, with the exception of the MCAW rear panels, are all out.
Yeah.
So it's pretty stripped.
Yeah,
So
I guess the next step is like jumping in and clearing out the rest of the stuff, because like you said, it's not all completely torn. I think there's still the wiring harness that's sticking through the firewall that we have to figure. You took that out?
I took that out. That's out. The wiring harnesses pretty much are all out, with the exception of the one that runs all of the audio
right
in the cabin
through the doors and stuff like that.
The harness itself, the ECU harness and the module harness that connects all of the auxiliary, like the
starter,
all that
alternator,
shit, that's gone. That's out.
The fuse box.
Yeah. Fuse box is still there, kind of, but I do, and this will be later on, right? This is kind of the project plans. But to the point, first thing that needs to be done is we need to sand this thing down, fill out all of the imperfections, if you will. So I have a pretty good, and I've been debating about filling this or not. There's a pretty good door ding on the driver's side door.
Yeah.
And it's about a quarter. It's like a quarter size. But when I look at it, it looks kind of cool.
Character.
I don't know why. It just looks kind of cool.
So you're going to ding the passenger side?
Yeah, I don't know how we set it up, but we're going to fill Bondo, whatever, get the body all straightened up. And then, we're going to move on to painting. But one of the things that, again, this is kind of where we start to detract on the might as wells, right? I know that I bought the felony form fenders. As soon as they came back, I was checking this site like every week.
I missed them. That's why I have Big Duck Club on mine.
For like 3 years, I was checking the site like every week to see if they had come back into stock. And they finally came back into stock, and I ordered them. And I told you to order some too. And like the next day, they were out of stock again. So I got some felony form fenders that I'm going to put on the car. I do want to do the rivet look. I think that looks super sick.
It looks so sick on E36.
I think it looks dope.
I technically don't have the rivet look, but I have riv nuts, and I used black hardware, so it's similar. It's I
want to do the riv nuts so I can take them off if I ever need to. Either for repair or whatever. Like, I don't want to be sitting there trying to break a rivet. But the riv nuts, 100% want to do.
Yeah.
That being said, do I cut the car up before I paint it or after I paint it?
No.
Everyone's going to say, before. But my thought process is...
Let's hear it.
Some of the felony forms some of the fenders got damaged in transport. We are not good with fiberglass.
This is true, but I've seen some videos.
Trying to repair that to make it look good to put on the car is going to be difficult. And I don't want to drive around with a cut fendered car trying to fix these felony form fenders. So that is kind of my, should I do this now or should I do this later? Go to a shop, have them do it, whatever, or us try it. I don't know. But if we are confident that we can, because the damage to them isn't like a minor thing. Like there is a pretty good crack.
Yeah,
going down the middle.
It's something that someone with experience should probably touch versus us trying to figure it out. But
it's not like it's on the panel and I can just put a fiberglass piece over and try to Bondo it and we're good. Like it's literally like,
Yeah,
it's
you'd have to spread it to get it to like fit back in, but then it's fiberglass, so you can't. It's no way to fix. I think what you would have to probably do is cut off whatever's stopping it from realigning. And I mean, the reason why I feel like we might be able to, because Donut did the series, which I wanted to do a video where we watched the actual painting, and do like a reaction style video. We might still do that. But in the beginning of that or the one before it, he fixes a couple of fiberglass pieces, and it's like it didn't look like it was that hard. It's just a lot can go wrong with fiberglass.
I mean, I've tried to do this type of repair,
and these are rare.
Yeah, when I had my Eclipse, and I cracked the front bumper that was fiberglass. Granted, I was 19 years old when I tried to do this. I'm 36 now. So some time has passed, and I'm more patient. But it looked terrible. I did not do it. And it was a similar type of crack where it, cracked all the way through and you were trying to line them up and stuff like that. But that's kind of where I'm like, should we do this? Should we not? Moving on though, because there's so much to this.
Yeah.
Car that I want to do. So I don't want us to get stuck on this one thing and people are like, it doesn't sound like he's doing a lot to his car. There is a lot that could happen.
I guess we can wrap up the painting by saying first things first is just to clear off what's left of the pieces and get them in, stored, and then finding the right way to sand it. Obviously, being budget minded, we'll probably just get some blocks and start ripping at it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we can look into some of the stuff that has come up recently, which is like the dry ice that can just like rip paint off.
Yeah.
But if we go all the way down to metal, then we're dealing with painting metal, which is
I don't
harder.
Want to do that. I've seen so many videos of like people doing it, and it ends up looking like trash. And like, so there's one painter that I'm following on YouTube that like does this budget stuff, and he's like, you can get this looking good if you just take your time, spend some time on it. Like, and I've been watching a ton of his videos. And every time he starts, he's like, don't go to bare metal. Never go to bare metal. Like, that's his thing. Is like, you can paint a car any other color that you want. And the reason why we're talking about bare metal is because I am switching the color of the car, right? I'm not going to have the Boston green. I'm going to go white, which going from a very dark color to a light color is difficult to do because it's going to show through, right?
Yeah.
And so the guy that I've been watching, he's basically, like, you can do this. It is possible to go from a dark color to a light color. It's just going to take you more coats. The base layer or your primer needs to be, fairly thick. You're going to have like 3 or 4 coats of that. You're going to have to sand it down right, see the hot points, repaint that.
Yeah.
And once you kind of get it all on that primer one color look, then you can go with your new, the new color that you want, and it won't show through. That's kind of the caveat. That's why we're talking about going bare metal or not. But I think we have the tools required. I do have 2 sanders. I have 2 power sanders. One's battery. One's wall outlet. We can knock this out. I've seen people use these exact sanders to get in and take that paint away. So it's possible. It's just going to be a lot of work, and that's where a majority of the work is going to happen, is the sanding.
Shop beers and Creed. We're going to get it done.
Oh, I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking.
Yep, that's where we're going to be in, I don't know, T-minus 3 months.
It's going to be great. Haley's going to be pissed.
So much dust everywhere.
So that's first thing, right? Once we finish and kind of get the body straightened out, get the paint in, I am looking at kind of veering off in 2 different directions just because of how many parts I have, right? So the content that's going to be created, and I'm going to try to kind of do them both at the same time because there's other residual parts that I haven't ordered yet that still need to be ordered to complete both sections. But one's engine, one's interior. Like, they're 2. The engine's obviously a lot more complex than the interior, but I'm doing some stuff on the interior that I find really intriguing, more so than the engine aspect, just because it ties into the engine, right? So going off the engine first, obviously, I'm going to be doing a rebuild of I did a top end rebuild when I first got the engine. I went pretty smoothly, but during the time that I did do that rebuild, I did notice that there was some warpage on my S50 between cylinders 3 and 4. And the guy that we've talked about him on this podcast a couple times, Ben, and I'm going to actually call him, see if I can get him on this podcast. Yeah. He has some crazy fucking builds. But I had Ben come over to take a look at it because I was like, this seems really bad. Should I run the car like this? And, he took a look at it. We measured it out. It's a pretty significant warp if we kept the block the same. He says he was telling me then if I deck it, I should be able to get that warp out. I'll just have to get a really thick fucking MLS head gasket to
double it up.
Yeah, basically to make up for what I've lost in that warp. So that's a bridge I'm going to have to cross when I get there to see if it's even possible to do that. If not, I'm going to have to find a new S50 block somewhere.
So you can put some real power into it.
Yeah, because I want to put power into this car, so I'm going to need to have the right, I can't have a warp like that. So depending on that, right, obviously we're going to go with bottom end bearings. I'm going to get new pistons, forged pistons and rods. Going to get a forged crank, even though the crank on the S50s, I think, are forged, if I remember correctly, or it was the S52s. I'm just going to get new internals all the way through and rebuild that entire engine as clean as I possibly can get it, right?
Hell yeah.
Moving into that clean sector, we've obviously deleted the ABS. We've already mentioned that. I'm not going to have ABS. I am going to go for a tucked engine bay look. So I'm going to have as minimal amount of shit as I can in the engine bay, which leads into the interior. This is why I was saying the interior is going to be intriguing. But I'm going to have as minimal amount of things in the engine bay as I possibly can and try to hide the wires as best as I can.
Yeah.
So I've noticed that in the E36, the frame rails are hollowed out, and there are a lot of holes in the rear and at the front of those frame rails. So I'm going to be running all of the wiring for that car through those frame rails and creating basically a hole where because I've deleted the AC, there was those AC lines that go on that kind of that back firewall part. I'm going to run the electrical through those AC holes, plug them up, kind of why, because the intake manifold covers those, right? So you don't see them coming out of the firewall, and then run any wires through those frame rails, so everything is buttoned up. You can't see really wires anywhere, right?
Yeah, I've run them that way myself, and I don't think you'll actually need to do anything through the frame rails. Everything goes tucked under the manifold, and then it's just making sure that in that bulkhead, it's safely done and done well.
Yeah, well, so that for the majority of the engine wires, yeah, you're right.
Well, I guess the headlights and the radiator,
the fan switch, the radiator temp switch.
So that would go through the frames.
All that stuff is going to go through the frame rails, right? That
I don't have headlights. They're there. They're not plugged in. I'm never gonna plug them in.
Yeah, so
I'm not
everything. That's what I'm saying. Like everything, the fog lights, headlights, the halos.
Yeah.
Anything on the radiator, the temp sensor for the oil cooler that we're going to add, the temp sensor for the intercooler that we're going to add. All that stuff is going to run through the frame rails because that is at the front of the car, right? Anything that stays in the rear of the car can be ran from the rear of the car and hidden by the engine will just come straight from that firewall into the engine because that, there's a pretty big space underneath that manifold that you can tuck things into, right?
Yep.
That kind of moves into, yes, I'm going to turbo the out of this car, which is why the engine got ripped out, why I'm rebuilding it, why all that shit is happening. I am going to put a turbo on this car. I know it's not such a big deal because everybody does it, but it's a big deal to me because it's going to be my first turboed car. I have worked on turboed cars. I have driven turbo cars. I have done builds with turbos. I have never done it for myself, and it's one of the reasons why I'm pissed I never got the GSX and why I didn't go and buy another turbo car when I was looking for a replacement for my Eclipse. I am finally at 36 going to have a turbo car, and I am super stoked about it. So, yes, I'm throwing a turbo on here. It's going to be fat. I'm going to get it tuned. I already have, the Megasquare ECU. I have a tuner lined up. I've been talking with him probably for the last couple years about, what I need to do from a turbo aspect, the type of wastegates, the size of the turbo, the runners, everything to make sure that I get the most optimal performance out of the turbo that I want. The only caveat is I do want it top mounted, which is terrible for performance from these cars, but I do want to show it off because I'm vain as fuck like that.
Hell yeah. The same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, my my engine has turbo headers on it. And
I know.
speaking of another piece that maybe you can have, if we don't get this engine running, I'm gonna take those headers off, and they're going straight on that S50 if it's ready before mine. So ready to
Yeah,
go.
I was gonna ask you about those. Eventually, was like, hey, if you don't use them, I'll buy another set. But while they're because they took like 6 months to come in, right?
Yeah, it took forever, and I mean, just gonna say it. I don't know if they're positioned correctly. You might have to cut the wheel well a little bit to fit a turbo, or it needs to have some sort of spacer on it because it is positioned so weird.
You had the RSI one, right?
I think so. Yeah, whatever one was, I think on your list, I might have just taken that link and
it's
bought
the
it.
Rapid Spool one, which a lot of people have talked about some of the positioning on that for the larger turbos.
Yeah, little turbo I think would fit fine.
Yeah, I don't plan on keeping that T4 mount on there. I was going to cut it and put a V-band so I can fit other larger turbos on there. That'll be something, regardless if I get yours or if I order my own.
We'll figure it out.
It'll be
figured out when the time comes.
So that is, I mean, that's a high level version of the engine. That's what we're going to do. The engine. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to do some other stuff like buying new lifters. I might go out and get a more aggressive cam spec, depending on what I can do with the tune from the turbo. But that's after the car is already running. So this is just to get the car back up and running. This is what I want to do.
V1.
Yeah, this is
V10.
Is the MK1 version of Reanimate. So that's all set. Engine's good, but all the stuff that I'm taking out, like that fuse box, that's going in the cabin. The ECU going in the cabin. All that wiring is going to be pushed into the cabin, right? And I'm going to hide them behind the dash. So it's not really a far transition, right? It's just going behind the firewall. And I think I can actually get a lot of this done because the firewall has certain cuts in it already. So I don't have to really mess up the integrity of the firewall.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything, actually. So the way that I've done it, which you will similarly be able to do it, is there's I don't know what brand it was, but you can get it on Drift HQ, and it's a piece of metal that's in the exact shape, and it has a seal around it, and it bolts where the AC went.
Yeah.
So it's a delete panel.
The Hard Motorsports.
Yeah.
Hard Motorsports.
It's a delete panel, and then you get bulkheads to put through it, and then as long as they're race spec or whatever, and you get the, what's it called, like a boot that goes around it. Like mine are completely naked, so if I was to drive in the rain, I'd be risking it all.
Yeah.
But if you put actual sleeves around it and do it the right way, you can get it done right there. And then that whole void that is there from deleting the AC is enough space to fit all the electronics if you do it right.
Yeah, and that's what
your Pi computer.
Yeah, well, no. So this is
change direction.
This is where I get a little Too Fast, Too Furious-esque. All right, this is my Too Fast, Too Furious inspiration. So moving into the interior, obviously I have bought all of the MCAW panel deletes, the rears, the door. That stuff is going in, but I need to cut up some of that stuff because I do want to get a roll cage. I am trying to decide whether I want to get a 4-point or a 6-point roll cage. The only reason why is because I think it's dope as fuck when you open the door and there's that one bar that goes across your seat.
Race car.
Makes it more race car. It's in the E36. I have sat in an E36 that does have a 6-point, and it's a little cramped. So that's what I'm kind of still debating on it. If whichever one I decide to go with, I'm going to stick with it regardless if I like it or not, just because I don't want to continue putting holes into the body and kind of messing that up. To refill the holes, obviously you just have to weld them and then sand them. And it's
patchwork.
asking for rust to come in there and fuck it up. I don't want to do that. So whichever one I decide to go with, that's what I'm going to stick with. I haven't really decided yet because it's a little far away, but we have the panels, we have the roll cage. I do have some authentic Vader Hurricanes that I'm going to be putting in. Those are very expensive. I got them from Ben, who ended up having them from somebody. He got them from somebody, hit me up, was like, hey, I know you've been looking for Vaders. I have the Hurricane pattern version. Do you want them? I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Yes, I do. How much do you want for them? And he's like, well, it's going to be a little expensive, but I'll give you the homie hookup. And I was like, I don't have that money, but I will find it. And to Ben's credit, he let me go on a payment plan. basically to
Wow.
buy these seats, and I paid them off in 6 months, pretty much. That's how expensive it took me. 6 months to pay these bitches off. But I have manual Vader with the hurricane pattern. I know you could just get regular Vaders and put
Yeah, to have it
whatever them
reupholstered.
reupholster them. But these have the serial numbers on them. They're authentic, like they're the legit ones. So I can at least attest to that. What's really funny is those two seats cost more than me buying the actual fucking car. So that's like a kind of a weird thing to have in a car, is your seats cost more than the car itself.
Yeah. I mean, you could go that way with wheels a lot of the time.
Yeah, you can. But that was always funny to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got the seats. I'm going to be putting the harnesses in. I'm looking for, because there is a BMW like red seatbelt that's like the regular one. I'm trying to find the harnesses that have like either the hurricane
Yeah.
hurricane
Because they have the
pattern
shifter
on them.
boot that matches with Condor.
I do have the shifter boot with the hurricane. I do have the short shifter that's in there as well. So it's going to look, and the ZHP knob. I was thinking about doing the ZHP knob in the hurricane, but I actually like the clean look of just the leather.
Yeah.
So I kept it there. But yeah, I'm looking for the right racing harness to put into those seats to kind of match what I have. I do have the Sparco steering wheel. I am going to get the energy hub, and that outside of those things, we're going to kind of keep the center console and everything stock. Moving into what I actually think is going to be crazy for this car, right? And I kind of talked to you about this a little bit, is the head unit. Those are single DIN head units, right? They don't really have a screen. But since I don't have any AC anymore, I can have a double DIN head unit, or I can have a single DIN that has a screen that's large enough to be double DIN. I want to basically move the ECU into where my passenger airbag is.
Mm-hmm.
That section, so I can just pop off the cover for the passenger airbag.
That was my V1 of my ECU placement, was so that I can open that airbag spot and be like, yep, there all is.
And then right next to it, I'm going to have a Raspberry Pi unit that is connected to the ECU. That Raspberry Pi unit will then connect to whatever head unit that I buy to display the computer, basically, so I can tune the car without having to plug anything into the ECU. It's all one unit, and I can do either like tunes on the fly, or if I take it to a tuner, they don't have to tear anything apart.
Here's your keyboard and mouse, bud.
Yeah, keyboard and mouse, go for it.
Yeah.
It kind of opens up a lot of things for me to do within the car, having that computer there. Not just the tunes, but also what I can display from the ECU while driving. So I don't have to get a bunch of gauges or anything like that. It gives me a lot of options of what I can do with it. Here's the thing, though, is I haven't found a head unit that has that HDMI connection.
Yeah.
That would support that type of linking, right?
Well,
where it has the head unit, and then I can switch to.
Yeah, you don't need HDMI. So like
I know there's the HDMI converter for the RCA. Raspberry Pi doesn't support it.
What?
Yeah,
it should. I
know.
I have to talk about that, because
I have a Raspberry Pi here.
Yeah,
I want to buy the converter, and I want to get like an old TV.
I have it in the Evo, so we'll test it.
Yeah, I want to test it.
The head unit that's in the Evo and the one that's in the truck too has RCA outs. Mm-hmm. And I bought a converter that does RCA to HDMI. I think what you probably have to make sure you do is you buy the one that it has to be specifically directional to RCA to HDMI and not the other way, which might be what's happening. Maybe, I don't know. But like, I can play the Switch in the Evo, and I just have to switch over to that display, like to take the input. So we'll test it with what I have. And the other thing I was going to say, based on what you just said, is I think we should look for the source of that head unit screen, because all it is it's just a screen that's built into the Evo's sort of like the OEM look of that panel. And obviously E36, it doesn't seem like they have a version of that, but MCOM makes that delete panel. If we find the screen and the unit with all the wiring, we can fabricate it ourselves pretty easily.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking about doing. Part of this whole interior construction is it hasn't really been, I don't want to say hasn't been done because I'm sure somebody's thought of this shit,
Yeah.
but in the way that I want to have it displayed and looked, obviously getting the MCOP panel is going to make it look not stock. I want it to look as stock. Like if you got that car, it's like, oh, this is a 90s car, but it has 2025 technology in it.
Yeah.
But it looks like it came with the car, right? I don't want to have the gaps. I don't want to have like weird.
Yeah, same. It looks like shit. I have the MCOD installed. It looks terrible. It's because the dash itself has like an inch thickness, and where the plate mounts is all the way in the back
all
of it.
The way back,
so it's like,
right?
I
want it to be flush looking, right? I want it to look like it's there.
But with that said, we can use the bottom half of the MCA panel and build off of that with either fiberglass or Bondo or something.
Exactly.
3D, dude. And then we need to buy a 3D printer, 100% for this.
If we can figure out how to CAD shit up.
It's got to be easy. Some of the people I see doing this,
there's a whole nother level.
Some people I see doing this
kind of moves into, what I'm doing with what I do with the interior, right? Everything trying to look as stock as possible, but when you touch the car, it doesn't feel stock. That's the whole point of this build, is to make a car that looks race car enough, but it doesn't look like, oh, they just cut everything
gutted.
Up.
Like you probably still want a little bit of sound deadening so that you're not sound rattling in there or something.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to do something with the MCOP panels to sound deaden them a little bit so they don't rattle.
Well, they're thin as hell too.
Yeah, but that kind of moves into like, I'm going to place going into the sound system. I sent you some speakers. I literally did some research after that that episode. I found speakers that supposedly have the sub built in. I went and I did a thorough look through my Jeep. It does not have a sub. They come from the fucking speakers. Like I texted you, like, my leg is rattling from the door speaker because I can feel the bass coming from the door speaker. So I know this is possible now, but the amps are going to go underneath the seats. Like I don't want anything in the trunk, right? Amps are going to go underneath the seat. All the wiring is going to be underneath the carpet, which we have to redo. The carpet is f***ed up. And my headliner also is still tan. I want to black out the interior as much as possible.
Hell yeah.
So all that kind of ends up making the car feel stock with race car hints to it. Having that center console with the short shifter, the Hurricane,
felony forms.
Cage. Yeah, but I still have stock seats. That kind of feel, right? So once I get those two things done, right, the car is pretty much drivable at that point. I have a list of suspension upgrades that I need to get done.
Yeah.
Starting off with the BCs. Going to throw BC coilovers into there. Going to get the Turner Motorsports strut bars, the thicker strut bars. I am doing the conversion from the M3 or the base model strut bar mounting point, which is on the control arms. It's going to be onto the BCs. So I'm going to get M3 BCs instead of the stock ones or the base level ones. And then I have a whole host of not bearings, but a whole host of bushings that we need to redo, which I've already bought. Like I have the lollipops. I have a bunch of the ball bearing joints for all of the control arms, the rear control arm bushings. I have the diff bushings. I also have the diff reinforcement plates that need to be put on. I kind of want to go through this list real quick with you so you can just hear.
No, I have it up. I see it.
Yeah. The amount of shit that's in this, right? So like cooling system, Mission Motor radiator, Stewart water pump, thermostat housing, Samco radiator hoses, Mission Motor thermostat, coolant level sensor, Evo Sport pulley kick, Zionville fan shroud, and then the Spall 60-inch fan. All of those are already done. For the suspension, BC coilovers. Actually, I guess I'm going with the Garagistic strut bar set now.
It is a
Condor
badass looking
solid
set.
steering shaft, the poly F cabs, Condor sub reinforcement kit, rear shock tower reinforcement kits. Oliver.
Here, I'll flash this on the podcast.
Just flash it because like the amount of
it's a
stuff
long list.
It's a huge list. It's a huge list of shit. So, but I bought probably 65% of it.
Yeah. So done means that it's either bought or installed.
Yeah.
Or has been installed and is potentially off now because it's been ripped apart again.
Or still in boxes brand new. Which sucks.
So I'm going to end it with that, with scrolling through this list because it's big enough. But I think there's one last question that's burning in my mind, and I don't know why. What color's the roll cage going to be? Because before you answer, I know it's going to be a white car, Stormtrooper style. You just explained that the interior is going to be as blacked out as possible. But are you going to make this roll cage black, white, or an accent color?
Ooh, yeah. That also is a big part of the car. It's going to be accented. And I have two accents. Colors. The first accent color, which is going to be really like my calipers, the control arms, and like I'm thinking the turbine housing for my turbo are going to be that like neon yellow green color. My valve cover, the turbine housing could go either one, that green color or this next color, but the valve cover, potentially turbine housing, some interior parts, and the roll cage are going to be a purple color.
Just got a chub for that one. Yeah. You know I like my purple accents.
Yeah.
I got my Evo has the purple quick release. And wherever I can, I will be adding more little bits of purple.
It's going to be the NRG purple that you have in the Evo. Since I'm going to get the same hub and it's already done that color, I'm going to mimic that color. And I think the roll cage with the NRG hub on the interior will just look really, really clean.
Yeah.
And when you open it up, it's not going to be bright enough where it like takes away from some of the stuff on the interior, but it'll also be bright enough where it's like, oh, that's kind of cool.
You'll see it.
It's a true accent instead of a pop accent, which are like the calipers and stuff like that I'm going to do.
Dude, we're going to be able to like roll up to a stoplight and throw wheels at each other and reconnect them.
I want to do that. Just like switch wheels and go.
That would be even better if you got a right-hand drive GTR one day.
Yeah.
Because then we could pull up right next to each other.
There's
no throwing needed.
That's the only GTR I'm going to get. If it's not right-handed.
Yeah, I fucked up. I got a left-hand drive Viva or whatever.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
But all right, cool.
That's going to be the bop.
Yeah. It's going to be Varna.
Stormtrooper.
All right, crew. That's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're new, consider joining the crew. By subscribing to the channel, you're going to get two things. One, you're going to get consistent, awesome content about cars, whether that's from this podcast, Prjct.POD, or from our build content as we sort of work on our collective cars. I have an Evo 9, an E36, and a Tundra. Justin has his E36, and we, of course, will always be on Marketplace looking for opportunities to add to the fleet as long as we have space. And the second thing is you'll be a part of our giveaway and any future giveaways. The bare minimum is to be a subscriber. And once we hit 1,000 for this first one, we're going to be giving away a set of Icon wrenches from Harbor Freight and a Daytona jack and jack stands. So I think that's about a $300 value. And you can choose cash as well. And all you gotta do is be a part of the crew. Once we hit that number 1,000, we'll pick a winner and move on to the next one. And if you're not new, you know what to do. Hit the like button, leave a comment, share this video. Those are the ways that help grow the crew. And until the next one, I'll see you later, crew. I wish I was not in a hotel right now, but you know, I gotta work. I'm at a trade show. I'm gonna shoot some video for this company, make some money, hopefully buy some more cars. I don't know. We'll see. I'll see you later, crew.
I think I got a vendetta.
Go spend some money on that money pit.
Oh, now they call me, I seen them. All of those times getting severed. I told them all I get let up. They get not tired of me never.